Well, now we're down to the wire. Let's see. I've already hemmed the skirt. Basically, just treat it like a big bias tape. But first off, let's get some of these things out of the way. We need to make some pieces, and by pieces, we need to make the loops for the lace up part in the back. I have my dress prepped. The last thing we're gonna do, I would even go as far to say, because I already did it in this sequence, hem the dress already, and then the last thing you'll do is finish sewing on the patches if you want to put more on the skirt, which I still have to. So I'm just gonna leave that to the last. Normally I leave the hemming to the last, but you know, both of them were kind of daunting because the gown hem is it's pretty wide in circumference. So I just chose to do it in that sequence. So let's go ahead and do the loops for our lace up. What I'm doing, I measured the top of the dress where the back starts, I guess, and then I measured it to the bottom of the opening. It's like, you know, like the top of the dress in the back, and then the bottom where it stops being open, like on the center back. So now what we're going to do is put in the loops for the lace up. I was going to make these from scratch, but I was just making them so thick. I'm like, oh my God, dude, you're going to break your needle when you start to sew. So I went to the store and I got this material. It was in the ribbon section. It's like a woven thing, but it's flat. So this is how I'm going to approach this. So each side of the opening is 15 inches long. So again, my obsession with this nylon, you could use whatever you want, but I'm using this because it doesn't stretch at all and it's thick, and I feel this will be like a good structural base for this material to be anchored to. So I cut out one of these that's like 30 inches long because each side is 15, and I stitched it in half. If you have something similar and it's not that wide, you don't have to really stitch it in half, but I just did because it's too wide. So what I did here, let me kind of give you the gist of what I did. At the top, I measured down 1/2 inch and I folded it over to start the beginning of my loop making. Now this is how I'm doing it. You could always buy a pre-grommeted ribbon or sew in D-rings or whatever, but this is how I'm going to do it. So how did I do this? Okay, so from where I have it folded, I don't know if you could see the edge. That's why I like these quilter rulers, because you could see through them. The edge of it is 1 1/4 down, and then I pinned it. Then I measured up. So let me show you further down here where I'm already doing it. So here's where I ended. So I'm going to, and this might be a little tedious. I'm kind of almost at the end, you know. It's just one of those parts of the project where you have to just put on a show and just keep at it. So where I have it pinned, it's 1 1/4. So at the end here, I'm just gonna mark it with a pin. Like, I've literally given up on using chalks. They just come off, they're messy. And the last time I used a red tailor's chalk on somebody's white stuff, it freaking stained it and I had to make a new section out of it. Like, it literally stained the project. I tried washing it so many times and it faded to a very light pink, but that was not cool. I did not appreciate that at all. So now I'm just marking stuff with like big neon colored stitches and pins. So if you're wondering, probably not, but that was my rant because I was remembering that today. So again, I'm going to try and use every bit of this ribbon as like margins. So from the top of this ribbon, I'm going to put it on the 2 line on my ruler. So that way your loops are the same. And then I'm going to measure, and then I'm going to mark it right here, 2 inches up. I already have it marked down. And also I made this stitch here from this side. It was sewing in half an inch, I'm sorry. So this is also like a guideline for me. So I'm gonna meet this pin at the stitch line. I'm gonna just pin them together. Then I'm gonna go down here. Let me take this out. Then I'm just gonna slightly angle it and fold it up. See, but I'm staying within this guideline here. And then I'm gonna pin both of them down to the ribbon. Okay, then I'm gonna do it again. 1 1/4 inch where my pin is. I'm gonna mark it down over here. Then I'm gonna salute this string up. Put my 2 on the edge of the ribbon. Get another pin. And then where it ends on the ruler, I'm gonna just mark it. So once I'm done, then on this side of the raw edge, not the folded, the raw edge of this, I'm gonna stitch it down below my guideline here, all the way down, so I can remove the pins, and then I can start putting it into the dress, which I will show also in a little bit. And again, this may be overkill, but this is someone's dress. It's gonna take a lot of tension, so I would rather overly engineer it on this aspect than to get a call later on and then be like, the dress popped all its corset seams in the back or something, and like, that's not good. So I'm gonna keep doing this, and let me go ahead and finish. I have it. I had to do an alteration on the loops because they turned out to be not a similar number when I counted them on each side. So I had to cut one off, and I'm just gonna bring up the split from the back a little bit from the bottom, you know, towards the back, or if you're looking at the human, toward from like the butt crack to the head of the person. Does that make sense? I don't know, it's late. So anyways, I got them all even now. There's 10 loops on each side. So let me show you so you don't get confused. Okay, so right now I have them pinned to the edge of the actual bodice, not the lining. And I'm just gonna just so I can stitch it down, because when we go and we flip it kind of inside out and start sewing the lining to this, when we flip it out, it looks really nice, like this side. Hold on, let me show you. So it looks like this. See, it's like I had flipped it inside out. Again, I'm trying not to deal with too many pins, so I just overstitch as like a permanent pinning thing. So I'm gonna stitch this all the way down, take out the pins, and then I'm going to, here's the lining, here's the actual bodice. Ow. Then I'm going to flip them over and have them meet and then sew it down. But that's me just talking about it. Let me go ahead and stitch this down, and then I'll show you. So the lining to the bodice part, as I already showed you before, I had put all the loops on like a ribbon, just for easier handling. So let me kind of, can you see? So like I said before, I had uneven loops, so I fixed that, put it in. Now all I'm doing is I'm just kind of like pulling these out, make sure like they're nice and out. Nothing's being tucked in from the, geez, so blurry, I'm so sorry. you know, there's nothing tucked in the seam, like it's all out. And then I was going to do a top stitch all around down. Just have to fix this little hole right here, but same thing all the way around. And then I was going to do the Modesty Flap, which I need to put it on the mannequin to see how wide I need the Modesty Flap to be. So let's talk about the Modesty Flap. Now I was telling you, I believe I was telling you, that to figure out how wide you need the Modesty Flap is, you know, go ahead and lace it up on yourself or on your mannequin according to your measurements, and then see at the top, like where the back is, like the widest part, that there's a gap. What is that width? And then of course, as it's laced up, that width closes and gets narrower and narrower as you go towards your waist or your hips, however long the slit is in the back that's open to lace up. So what I thought at first is I was just going to draw the gap in the dress was about 10 inches. So I was like, oh, I'll just do like a giant square that's like 10 by, and I think the length of the slit was 14 down the back of the gown. But then I kind of looked at it and I was like, where the gown opens, you know, let's say this is the lace up back, where the gown opens in this area, I don't want a giant freaking square in there. It's going to be uncomfortable in this area. So what you'll need to do then is take that width, which in my case it was 10, yours may be different, and instead of doing a giant square, make a shape that's like a cone, sort of. So I had the width, the proper width of the gap that was here, which was 10 inches in my case, and I made like a you know, a cone. I tapered it off. So the shape of the Modesty Flap looked like that. And of course the length was the full length of the slit, which in my case it was 14. And then, you know, as it got down towards the end of the slit, well, then it gets narrower. So that way you don't have all this material in this area where it's narrower, and you're not like bunching stuff up. Like I understand it would be uncomfortable. So when you do your Modesty Flap, I would suggest doing it in this manner if it's pretty wide. If you only have about maybe a 4-inch gap when it's laced up, then just do, you know, a long rectangle. But if it's like it was in my case, then go ahead and do it in this cone looking shape. I have already turned in the gown at this point, but I am finishing up the tulle dress, which the way I'm doing it here is the exact same way I did it on the gown. So I still want to show you how to finish sewing this part on. So of course, like as I showed you in the beginning, I had stopped about right here when I was sewing everything to the bodice. So this was all, well, I tacked it down, but this is all floating, right? So what I'm doing is making sure like the netting is straight, that I'm not going to be sewing in any pleats or anything. And I am doing this by hand. I'm just making sure that it's lying flat. I'm not going to be sewing in any pleats or folds. So what I'm doing right now, I'm just kind of tacking down the bottom of this, which is like these little blue strands that are there, just to keep it like, to help me keep it flat, you know what I mean? So this, which one did I sew? It was this one. So let me just do another random one. So I'm gonna start in this one. Again, I'm just double checking that I have everything flat. in and out. This, I realize this is probably hard to see, but because it's like black mesh, black background, black thread. And then just kind of gotta make sure that you don't get any knots as you're pulling the whole thing through. And if you do end up pulling that knot through, it's okay, just start over. Yeah, this is a very time-consuming spot. I did a gigantic patch on the actual gown, which you'll see at the end, like the photos of it. And I swear that one took like all day. Like I really think I did like 5 hours hand sewing on that large patch, because you know, you want to make sure that it's sewn on right. You know, you want to make sure you do back stitches and you go sideways. Like, just make sure you tack down the whole patch, you know. And like here I'm paying attention to these little sequined like lines that are on this patch. I want to make sure that those are tacked down too. Yes, like the other one I was doing on the gown, that one took like, I swear, like I said, 5 hours. Because I remember I started in the morning when my son was barely getting logged on for school. And then I swear to God, I was like just finishing up. Of course, like I took a couple breaks, but I swear I was like finishing up right as he was logging off for the day. So I took a really long time on that one. And I was like, I'm not going to finish this today. It was so long, but I did. And these are just one of those things you have to just put like a podcast on or pick a playlist of movies and just get it done. You know what I mean? And at one point, once I have some of these little like all the little lines tacked down, then I'll feel confident that I can take this whole thing to the machine and do like some zigzag stitches and further tack down the patch. Just because like if you don't tack down like the bottom corner like pieces, when you go to the machine, you could end up sewing in folds of the mesh when you're not supposed to, you know. And I'm just going to follow it up to the top of this little line. And I'm just, again, securing all these sequins. I'm just going in and out of the holes of the sequins. Some of them I accidentally skip, but I'm still getting the patch down to the base tulle material. I can give my afterthoughts. I'm waiting for something right now in the car, so I figure now would be a good time to do what I'm talking about. Now, the dress, I think I put quite a few hours into it. What would I do different? Now, at the end, you saw me, I was talking about, oh, well, this is going to be kind of hard putting in the the patch to the dress, and it's kind of annoying. Like, you could still do it that way, and I did. But if I were to do it all over again, seeing that this is my first attempt at this dress, you kind of change things as you go along and you kind of learn from it. What I would do differently is when I cut out the initial panels for the skirt, my initial thinking was, well, I'll do all the embroidery patch stuff on the bodice, and then that will guide me where I'm going to add the big patches. And what I could have done is, to make it easier on myself when I got to the last part, is I should have put the embroidery patches on the panels, sewn it together, and it doesn't matter where it was beginning at the top of the dress, because there's embroidery patches like all over the bodice, right? So even if something was a little off, I could have easily cut out a patch from like another part of another because I had like 4 or 5 of them. I could have just cut out a piece to cover, like, if there was a gap or something, to make it look continuous. And I think that would have just been easier on me in the end, because like I said, that one huge patch I did on the ball gown, it took hours and hours. And if I had just done it with the machine on just a single panel, as before I had put the whole skirt together, that part would have taken me maybe an hour tops with all the patches. So this is where I could have saved myself hours and hours of time, but I did it the long way anyways. I mean, I came to the exact same outcome, but that's how I would have changed things now that I think about being, at the end of the dress and turning it in. And also, I did show you my thinking when I was doing the Modesty Flap, because originally I was just going to do like a giant square, but then when I measured it out, like the space was quite large, and I was like, well, you don't want to have a giant space, like a giant square going all the way down your back. So that's when I decided, I should kind of make it angled like a cone type shape, because it's more narrow, obviously, towards the waist and the hip area. It's just wider near the bust on the back area. So those are only a few things I would change if I were to do this all over again. Other than that, everything worked out the way I had wanted it to. The birthday girl looked great in it. I saw pictures of it, so I'm very happy with that outcome. So if you attempt this dress, take into consideration what I'm saying about what I would change now. If you have any questions, leave them down below and I'll answer them. And if I can't answer them, hopefully I can point you to a resource. But again, this is to my best of my abilities. So hopefully you attempt this dress if you really liked it. I still don't know who the original designer is. That's the problem with trying to order dresses off of like Wish or Amazon or whatever, these knockoff sites. You don't know who the person to give original credit to is. So if anybody does eventually find out, let me know, because I'd love to see who actually designed this dress. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. Bye.